Hello, hello. I hope that you all are in. So, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Today, we're going to be talking about the conscious voter, right? How to empower your votes. And so, we're just going to wait for a little bit, see people to join, and then we're going to get right on started. As you all know, we have not done this in a long time. So I'm a little rusty, but I got my favorite political insiders today to talk about just voting and kind of like the election prep for tomorrow. And we're going to talk about it tonight. So we want to see you all in the chat. Please feel free to comment, ask your questions. We're going to be real as possible. Our goal is to not persuade per se, but just give knowledge and give some insight. So I'm just going to start off with myself. I am Sequez, the host for tonight, and I'm going to let Dr. Swift and Jay Lovefield, since that's what we're going by today, we're going to have them introduce themselves. Um, a little bit about me. I'm Sequez. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, but I'm currently living in Nashville, Tennessee. And what makes this episode so important is that there's a lot of conversation that's been happening online, in the news, and just in the family rooms, in the chats, and the texts. And we just want to, and I just hear so much, and I'm just like, I just need us to have a real come to Jesus moment and have some real conversation that is based and rooted in truth, and go from there. So I'm gonna have Dr. Swift kick us off. Tell us your name, where you're located, right? Education, as far as your background, and why you was chosen, and what got you into politics. Also, real quick, we usually drink, but since they went to homecoming this weekend, they're more on the sober side. I didn't go homecoming to the Jackson State University this week, so I'm going to be drinking tonight, and I'm drinking a Cosmopolitan. They're going to just tell you that they're drinking probably water or something. So, hey, Kitty Brew. So, for Swift, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Brandon Ward, also known as Swift, Dr. Swift, Professor Swift, everything Swift. I am currently located in Houston, Texas, by way of Lake Village, Arkansas. Went to school at Jackson State B, Jackson State University, also known as Alpha Beta University. Got my bachelor's and master's in political science there, and I obtained my doctorate of education and leadership at St. Thomas University. What got me into politics? So my best friend from Lake Village, he kind of cussed me out. He asked me what I was going to do when I got to Jackson State, what I was going to major in. And I told him pre-law. And he said, Brandon, what the hell are you going to do with a pre-law degree if you don't go to law school? And I didn't have an answer. So I chose the next best thing in my mind, which was political science. And I've been stuck ever since. And that's what got me into politics. Nice to meet everyone. What's up, Naja? Kieran Brew, TV.
Go ahead, Jasmine. Did you say where you located at, Swift? Okay.
Well, greetings and good evening. This is Jasmine Love Cockfield, affectionately known as J Love to most of y'all, but J Love Field. I am a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, Obviously, there's a saint symbol behind me. I
Period.
attended the Jackson State University,
Period.
got my undergraduate degree in political science with a minor in speech comm. There's an echo. And then there we are. And then I went on to Rutgers University and got my master's in public administration. And I started working in nonprofit and I did some campaign work. And now I'm in the corporate sector with foundation giving. And so I absolutely enjoy the work that I do. But I got into politics because of my mom. My mother is an elected official and has been an elected official since 1995. So I was working a campaign at the tender age of 6. And I can remember passing out buttons and T-shirts and all of that at that tender age. And she is coming up for retirement this year. And so she is retiring at the end of the year. And so I am excited after a 29-year career in the judiciary. No more campaigns on her side. And I'm grateful for that. So, but that's how I got into politics. And currently I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's my background.
Period. Both of y'all are in the Black Mecca. So I wanted to start this off with, first of all, shout out to all the classmates. Shout out to Jackson State Thick up in here. We appreciate you. So we're going to start off, of course, with a pop quiz. And so we're gonna start off with a pop quiz. And the pop quiz is really simple. What are the first 3 words in the U.S. Constitution? You can just put it in the chat. Hopefully you know it. If you don't, it's okay to Google it.
Is there a prize?
Oh, we could do a prize. We could do a little prize situation.
All right, I got the prize. I'll send $5 gift cards to Starbucks for the
period. That is definitely a venti latte.
I got you.
A situation, maybe not with text, but period. First of all, Dr. Potato Head, yes, indeed. Not we're still recovering. Okay, period. We got the first one. Yeah, it's Dr. Potato Head. We the people. That is correct. You get Jasmine's $5 gift card. So send Jasmine a message, and she'll be able to drop that in your.
Can Dr. Potato Head put their real name in the chat so I can know who that is?
Just file a message if you on.
Oh, it's address. Okay. All right. I was like, please.
Hey, Rossi. That's a weird name. I just lost my thought. Okay, yes. So send Jasmine a message. So let's just jump right into it. So Jasmine asked me, are you sure that you want to start with this topic? And I said, yes. Yes, I do. I want to jump right into it. We last time we did this was 4 years ago. Was here 4 years ago, and so much has happened in 4 years. So I wanted to jump right into it when it comes to the January 6th, the storming of the Capitol, the Day of Love, as former President Donald Trump has called it. What is, how did we get here? Like, how did January 6th impact where we are today? I'm gonna start that with Jasmine. What transpired on January 6th, and how does that impact us from this day forward?
January 6th is a direct reflection of November 4th, 2008. November 4th, 2008 is when Barack Obama was elected. And because of our country and its lack of diversity, that Black man sitting in that seat for 8 years is what created 45. I truly believe that that's the onset of how we got to the riot. Now, do I believe the election of 2020 had something to do with it? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I feel like what was pulled from under a rug in 2016, the ugly head of our country that was reshown, is why the January riot happened. So I believe, like most things, it's rooted either racism, sexism, things of that nature. But to me, a lot of the repercussions of what we're seeing today is just because there was a Black man who sat in that seat for 8 years.
Do you want to add context to that, Fred, or add anything to that?
I can. If y'all remember during that time Barack Obama was president, we also saw the rise of Tea Party Republicans, those on the far right who felt that the country was not going in a way that was conducive to the betterment of a certain area of society. I'm trying not to go too deep into it. They felt threatened, right? So you had the Tea Party, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys. They felt emboldened by the rhetoric used by Donald Trump while he was president, "Make America Great Again." He was feeding right into what they felt was wrong or a country that was treading in the direction of equality for a segment of the population that had been missing it for so long. So they felt that their rights were threatened. And when Trump did not win the presidential election and he felt that it was taken from him, they cheated. I mean, he called on the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, the far right extremist groups, who he's been talking to his entire presidency, and they felt emboldened by his stepping back from what was taking place, and that's essentially what happened. It was a combination of it. You can't just point to just one thing, right? It was a combination of a lot of what's wrong with America still to today, and we're still seeing some of that rhetoric being used by Trump now, and some on the far right. But I'm pretty sure we'll get into that. But in terms of January 6th, that is the main reason why they stormed the Capitol, because you had those far right extremist groups who felt emboldened by Trump or the lack of Trump's trying to stop them, and they wanted to take back the Capitol.
Okay, so when we talk about taking back, right? I think there's been, and I feel like that has people was harmed, right? During that time, people passed away, people got into jail. It was a whole lot, right? And then there was a level, like you say, people felt emboldened, people started feeling more empowered. They had a good old boy in the off, that could take their place and speak up on their behalf. Do you think there was a shift between Biden versus Trump and now Harris versus Trump? Do you see there's some type of shift that's happening where the engagement is a little different, the context around the certain conversations or policies is a bit different? Do you see there's a difference between how the media is portrayed Biden and Trump versus Harris and Trump? Does that make sense with my question?
Um, so the media coverage of Trump hasn't changed. They are not really, the media really isn't how, well, let me take a step back. Some of the media really isn't highlighting what's wrong and the things that Trump say that goes against what the general population may say. Oh no, I can't rock with this. Whereas with Harris, they are highlighting every single thing that she says or does not say. I didn't see that with Biden, and I think that's because the general population felt that Biden was going to lose to Trump. Whereas now there's a possibility that Harris may win, and if Trump wins, he's looking at those media outlets that may be highlighting some of the wrong things that he's saying or highlighting him in a negative way, and he may go back against them if he becomes president. So they're not really highlighting those negative things. So yeah, there is a difference. I'm seeing it every day on social media, in news media outlets. You see, the Washington Post is owned by I can't remember who it is, but they didn't say anything. Yeah, who was it?
Oh boy,
Jeff Bezos
Bezos.
owns the Washington Post, and they won't endorse a candidate for the first time in 30 years.
Right. So you're seeing these things play out, right? So it's just about what happens next. But absolutely, there is a difference, and you see those differences in the media now.
Okay. We're gonna go further in that because I got some big feelings about that, but we're gonna go further in that in another segment. But I just, since we have Dr. Ward, who is, in his field, are we saying what you, whatever? Anyway, if you want to do because I don't think people understand government work, right? There's a lot of commentary about how Vice President Harris hasn't done anything in the office, and all these type of things, or so I think we just need to have a simple, basic civics 101 lesson, and we're going to start off with, does our vote count? In the grand scheme of things, when we have people saying it doesn't make sense to all those kind of things, does our vote really count? And that's for anyone, y'all, and the chat. Like, do our vote really count? Should we really be going out to the ballots and checking a couple boxes? Do our vote really count?
if your vote didn't count, there wouldn't be so many people trying to suppress it. And so I'm gonna go a little deeper with this and say that there's the difference between the popular vote and the electoral college when it comes to the presidential election. But in local elections, it's the same thing. There is no electoral college, but every vote counts. I truly believe that if your vote did not count, and I will always say this, there wouldn't be so many people trying to get you to not go vote. You only hear this on one side of the political spectrum. You don't hear it on the other side. Oh, your vote don't matter. Your vote don't count. No, that's not the case. And so that's my stance, and I will continue to say that. There are people who, as we all know, shed blood and tears for the right to vote. There are people who protested, boycotted everything that they could do for the right to vote. And the fact that so many people just say, I'm not going to vote, what a privilege. What a privilege, because I can't not vote. So yeah, but no, your vote does count.
So I'm gonna take a different approach because I asked this question to my classes this semester. Just having a brief conversation about why does the young generation not vote at the levels of those that were older. And one of the sticking points that came out is, well, they try to guilt trip us in voting all the time, not really telling us why we should vote. Like just saying, oh, you should vote because my ancestor died for it, that isn't a good enough reason. That's what I've been hearing. That's a whole nother topic, though. We'll get into that later. But does your vote count? Absolutely. So, if I'm not mistaken, the President Biden won Georgia by like 12,000 votes in 2020. That's like one weekend in Magic City. Yes, your vote. But seriously, yes, your vote does count. At the local level, like Jazz was saying, some votes are decided by hundreds of votes, if not even less than that. You could be the deciding factor of someone deciding to raise taxes or trying to raise funds for a school by raising your taxes, and you're not voting. I mean, all of these things impact you. You can't just look at the uh, federal election. You have to look at the local and state elections as well. Like here in Houston, they have two propositions on the ballot to raise taxes or to raise funds for HISD. This is directly impacting the Houston residents in their property taxes. So you got to have those conversations, and you got to make sure that these citizens know how their vote counts. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, your vote does count. I know we're gonna get to the electoral college, but regardless, your vote does count.
Since you brought us into the electoral college, so can you please at the simplest level the role that the electoral college play?
The simplest level. Okay, so
simple, like fifth grade.
Ooh. Essentially, there are states that have a lot more citizens than others. If we were to decide the president by the popular vote, meaning whoever gets the most votes, there will only be about 3 or 4 states that will decide the presidential elections. You got California, Texas, New York, and that's pretty much it, right? The framers of the Constitution wanted to grant the smaller states a say in who becomes president, so they created what's called the Electoral College. And there's this misconception that the Electoral College is what decides the uh, president and the people don't have a say. No, they still have to cast the votes according to what the state has said they wanted the president to be. Like they can't go against what the state has said, right? So even though Texas gets, I think 30 or 40, Georgia only gets like 12 or 15. I can't remember the exact number. They still have to cast those votes in accordance to what the
Georgia gets 16.
So on and so forth. Yeah. But that matters because that could change the outcome of the election, right? Georgia is one of those states that's highly contested right now. I think they had like maybe 4 million early votes casted so far. Michigan, Pennsylvania, like these states are small, their population are small, but because of the electoral college system, they could decide the outcome of the election. And again, you got all of these people at the grass wall hoop establishments. If they can go and vote, they could switch out the outcome of the election. So, yeah, your vote does matter in the electoral college. In my opinion, is beneficial, especially to those smaller states. And I would rather go with the electoral college than the popular vote. But yeah, the smaller states have a say in the presidential election, and that's what the framers of the Constitution wanted to happen.
Essentially, the Electoral College is affirmative action for the Republican Party. It gives them an opportunity to have a level playing field. I will stand on that.
I don't know about that.
How did we get there? Where did that come from?
Because affirmative action is trying to help level the playing field, right?
Right.
And so because of that, states like California and New York lean very heavily Democratic, right?
Right.
They're the coast states. And so when you think about a state like in Idaho that could never compete, or in Arkansas, to his point, that could never compete with those, it gives them an opportunity of a fair fight.
I wouldn't call it affirmative action, though. That's kind of, yeah. But go ahead, Sequoia. I'm sorry.
She definitely went out left on me on that one. I wasn't expecting that one. So when we talk about, so now we have understand the electoral college.
Mm-hmm.
Your vote does count. It doesn't count just on the presidential level. It's your local officials, your judges, representatives, all of that, right? Now, moving to, let's talk about the branches of the government. Okay, we have legislative, executive, and judicial.
They're my initials.
How you make things about you should be studied. I swear. But Jasmine, why do you think that the understanding? Because I'm sure civics was a long time ago for some millennials, and and our education system may not be the greatest.
Okay.
Why do you think that there is such a misunderstanding of the branches of government and the powers that they hold, and how everything is not to have equal power, equally distributed, and everything is not, the president cannot just do whatever he wants? Why do you think there's just such a huge misunderstanding, according to social media, when it comes to the branches of government and the power that they hold?
Because of the underfunding of the public school system, and the fact that most times civics is taught by a basketball coach or a baseball coach, and not a certified person who knows what they're talking about in the classroom. I know I went to a private school, and my civics teacher was the basketball coach, and he turned on Runaway Jury. And I was in a private school, right? And so I could only imagine what was happening in the public school. You can sit there and laugh, but it's a fact. Unfortunately, it's when it comes to the teachers or who are in the classroom, they're just not preparing the students for being qualified or established citizens in American society. And I think that that's where a lot of the discrepancies start. I think that's where a lot of the misinformation starts. And if you're not passionate about politics and you don't care, you're not interested, you have no idea why it affects your life, what it does for you, etc., you're not going to be interested in it, right? And so, you don't understand how driving down the street, if the street light is broke, the traffic light outside of your neighborhood, or the stop sign is down, or your trash isn't getting picked up, that's all politics, right? But if you don't understand that, right, and you weren't taught that in your civics class, then the misinformation in regards to the popular vote, electoral college, it's just going to be widespread because there is a lack of knowledge amongst the base. I think there was a number out that said that over 50% of America reads at a 5th grade level. And I think that also, and so that's just reading. That's not even comprehension, right? And so I think that plays a factor. I really think it's who's in the classroom teaching these things.
And I definitely agree. Like, my high school civics teacher was a football coach that was just trying to get a check. Even at the collegiate level, government is part of the core curriculum. It's a class that students have to take. It's not a class that students want to take. So if you're not majoring in political science, you're just taking a class just to pass and get the grades so you can move on through your core curriculum. And now these students are using ChatGPT, so they're really not paying other people to do their work. I see it all the time. So they're really not paying attention in class from my experience. Now, I engage my class in these discussions and talk, and actually would have had class tonight, but the power is off at TSU, which goes back to never mind. So yeah, these students really aren't as interested in local government and politics, and they don't have to be. They're just taking these classes just to take it, and they're not trying to understand how this really impacts them.
Now,
And
is
that's a
that
big
our fault though? Is that our fault for them not, like you said earlier about the electoral college and why they're not voting? Is it our fault that we're not um, having those conversations of the importance of understanding how the government works and be able to, because you can't understand something without this in order to dismantle. If you want to make a real change, you have to understand the change, understand what's happening so that you can dismantle, rebuild, whatever. Is it our job to engage, educate, raise awareness about the importance of understanding how your community, your government, your society operates? We
who
not
is
doing
who
our
is
part.
our who is our because I see organizations all the time hosting events at schools or just in the neighborhoods. Here in Houston, you got the Houston Area Urban League and several other organizations that host events like this to educate the populace all the time. Now, in the classroom, of course, I think I saw a statistic only like 5% of teachers are Black men. It's kind of hard to relate to these students if you're not of the same ethnicity. So you got white people, let me not say that. You have individuals who are not of the same culture in the classroom who may not can reach these students at the level of someone who is from the same area, same neighborhood, same background. So when
Mm-hmm.
you say power, I mean, it's kind of hard to get there and help them, especially when you have systems in place that are prohibiting us from or preventing us from reaching them the way we need to reach them, which we can get into systemic racism and its impacts on the populace another time. But you have so many barriers in place to educating the populace that, you really can't say that it's our fault. Now, are we doing things to try to overturn this? Yes, but it's
Yeah,
tough.
I'm not okay, fine. Let's take fault away, but
Mhm.
just understanding where we are today
Mm-hmm.
and understanding how the Gen Z generation, Alpha coming in, all of those things, we understand that where we are today, there is a gap. I think we can all acknowledge that there's
Mhm.
some level of a gap here, right? So understanding that there is some level of a gap, how do we try to repair that gap? How do we try to fill that gap when we know that they're feeling this type of way? Because at the end of the day got to end, and we're not going to be the cream of the crop anymore. Like the generation is going to come along regardless. Time is going to continue to happen. So how do we make up for lost time and try to do better for the future? For you guys kids that you may birth or whatever, for your kids and your kids' kids. Like how do we do that? Because it's not getting any better.
Well, I ain't having kids. Jazz.
Um, I think this is a little bit deeper than your question, but I do believe that a lot of the institutions that we used to have to help outside of the school are just no longer respected. Like the Black church used to be very a staple in the community when it came to politics, civic engagement. The civil rights movement was birthed out of the church, right? But in today's society, podcasts have replaced the pulpit. And so, unfortunately, if it's not in the school system and if it's not with the parents and if it's not with the local organizations and if it's not with the church, then it's got to be via social media, right? And so, or school or your, et cetera. But unfortunately, I have a very pessimistic view with this. So you may not want my opinion on what's going to happen, but I do believe that the dumbing down of society when it comes to civics and political engagement, it's just going to continue. Is there something we can do? Yes, we can teach better. Yes, we can be more involved. Yes, all of that. But I'm really not as optimistic about what the future holds for political and civic engagement until there is like a candidate that comes along that just blows everybody's mind and it's like, oh my God, we want to start from scratch. But yeah, podcasts have truly, to me, replaced the pulpit. So that what we used to have of where we had that engagement in the community, it's no longer there, and I'm concerned overall about the state of political affairs. That's me being a realist, and if you call it pessimist, whatever. I just don't know what's next. I don't have an answer to that, Squeeze.
Not you saying dumbing down, but I feel you. That's a hard pill to swallow of truth, but I feel you. Brian wrote a beautiful little essay, a nice little presentation, that I hope that you guys can all read. But I do find it alarming, Brian, and I said Brian, Brandon, in your class, what, and I'm sure that you have a level of engagement with your students. What are their concerns when they talk about, when you bring up, because I'm sure you bring up some type of politics or policies or just like a level of engagement? What are their things that they're concerned about that maybe we're just not connecting?
So I'll first say that I do teach a very diverse class. I have students as young as 18, as old as 40, 50, 60 years old, right? So I get the perspective of a very broad spectrum of students here in Houston. And I think this part resonates with both the younger and old. Number one is reproductive rights. I talk about, what is some of the things that are alarming to you as citizens here in Houston, as students. And they say reproductive rights, like they can't really do the things that they want to do and make decisions for their body here in Texas. And I'm seeing it as a sticking point across the spectrum, when I went to the Harris rally, and she had Beyonce and Kelly Rowland, Lord have mercy. That was the main sticking point. Like, women aren't able to make a decision about their body. I just saw a post today where some women died because of the complications from their birth. So I'm like, what's going on? But that's definitely
Buying the parking lots because they can't get DNCs. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. I'm pretty sure we're gonna touch on that too. But that's one of the major points that students are consistently bringing up here in my classroom.
Yeah, reproductive rights. Mm-hmm. So if those things are the topics of conversation, right? Are we not? Can we use that as a step to build more of that engagement, like understanding what their needs are, identifying, having some level of relatability, and then building that and how that can play into the overall? So I think how I'm seeing it, it seems like people expecting these politicians or these policies to fit their entire ideology. They wanted to be able to, like, they should see themselves in the complete fold, and it's giving individualistic versus people in community. Like, no, you're not going to get a politician that's going to get for every single thing that you believe in or want to see for the country. You're serving people and not a person. So how do we separate the individual for the greater human being? Does that make sense? Like the greater good.
Well, I don't think it's separating. I think you just have to show how participating or not participating impacts you. That's one of the sticking points in my class. They really hated to hear the older generation talk about, oh, you need to vote and do this because your ancestors did it. And I'm like, no, you need to vote and do this because if you don't, then you could be in the hospital about to die too. Or your tuition rates could go up. Or you don't know what the Board of Regents is saying, and they could be talking about raising your tuition, your fees, but you're not engaged. You don't know how to get involved and know who are making these decisions. So I try to approach it from that perspective, because saying, oh, you should vote because your ancestor who died on the balcony in the 1960s died for this, or just being I didn't really fit in the classroom. But it's saying, but you should vote because of these reasons. It is not resonating with the young generation. It's not. It's actually turning them away. So I think that
we need a different world. We need another one of those type of shows, because that used to get me excited. Like a different world, seeing those type of shows. That's what really got me into HBCUs. That's really got me kind of excited. I remember the voting episode on A Different World and stuff like that, or even Live a Single. We
these kids today are trying to go viral. If they're not going viral, they're not going to vote.
They're not.
Yeah, that was really depressing. Moving on.
So no, I was gonna say, because you said something earlier and you were jokingly saying it. I know it had nothing to do with me personally. You were saying, ooh, the way you make things about you should be studied, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing Brandon say is that's the world we live in when it comes to making people vote, right? It's how does it affect me? What is it going to do for me? Is it going to put more money in my pocket? Is it going to make sure that I can go to the hospital and have, adequate health care? Is it making sure that I can call the cops or the firefighters if something is to happen? Like, it's about me. We live in a very me-centered society, unfortunately now. That's just who we are. Community is lacking. We're more connected than ever because of social media, but we lack community, which is crazy. And so I think that that's why it's happening that way, right? It's a me society. And so unfortunately, if it's not affecting me, or if it's not gonna help me in some kind of way, why should I go do it? Why should I waste my time with it?
Amen. It's really just
It's a fact.
put it in there. I appreciate it. But that is true. And it's unfortunate that we can't see the us behind the me. But moving
And
on.
that's the reason I would say that's the reason why so many black voters want to vote for Trump, because he said I gave y'all $1,200.
What we gonna go on? That's right next. Right, but I want to do our pop quiz, right? This pop quiz, I'm gonna match Jazz and raise her $10 Visa gift card if you get how many amendments exist in the Bill of Rights. Put it in the chat. You get a $10 Visa gift card. The first person who gets it correct. How many amendments? Amendments. Oh my goodness. And I bet you people Googling it. Because Tiffany, you've been messaging the whole time, but all of a sudden you can't, and you're a teacher too. So you should probably be ashamed if you don't get it right. How many amendments are in the exist in the Bill of Rights? Do anybody have it? Draw said 20. Draw's Google is free. You all that time you could.
Did Sequoia's freeze?
Am I frozen?
Oh, okay. Was just making sure. Go ahead.
Not me getting nervous. She said, "Child, I teach."
Okay. Ariana Elliott.
Yes, Ariana, message me.
Yes, ma'am.
There's 10 amendments. Jasmine, I said Brian. What was this, Brian? Jasmine and Brandon, can you, not Trissy texting me 10. Right. She said, I can't comment on the chat. Jasmine and Dr. Swift, can you guys name off a few?
Well, I'm in Texas, so I'm gonna say the second one, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
Freedom of speech. Yeah. So and make sure you spell bear arms, the right way. Nobody's trying to take away your right.
Jasmine, I just asked, could you name one?
No, nobody's trying to take away your right to be sleeveless.
Okay, what? Okay.
I said freedom of speech. Jesus Christ. The press. The freedom of the press. Jesus.
So we're going to move on. So Brandon kind of kicked us off on the next one, which this title is going to be Word on the Street. Trissy is really mad at me. She said she wants her $10, but she texts first. Okay. Christy, you want to get yours. I promise, sis. Word on the Street. We're going to move on to, why does the stimulus checks got the black people in a chokehold? What's up with people wanting to vote for Trump over this? Was it $1,200? Over this $1,200? Because I'm trying to you probably $1,200 since then. And if you haven't, there's a bigger problem. Why is this $1,200 got us choked up? Because last time I checked, Trump didn't even want to give it to us. But I'm gonna let y'all speak on it. Why does $1,200 got? I'm gonna say specifically the black folks, the niggers, in a chokehold.
I'm gonna be brief. I'm gonna because I know Jasmine had some of the same comments.
Why does it got us locked up like this?
Well, it goes back to kind of our previous topic. Like we really don't know what the government. Let me not say we, because I do. There's
Why
a
you
certain
shading people? Like, now
segment
you getting
of the
shade.
You
population.
said I make it about me. Go ahead.
There's a certain segment of the population who's like, what does the government do for us, right? What I don't see the benefit of voting. I don't see my elected official, so on and so forth. I'm out here struggling, trying to make ends meet. Eggs at the grocery store at $30. Like there's some issues there, right? Trump came and put his name on the check and said, I am personally sending you this $1,200, right? And the black community was like, oh, we got a president that's really for us. We see his name on the check. He gave us this money in the height of an era of we going through it. He might really rock with us. And then we had the HBCU presidents taking pictures with him. Kind of, it was a combination of things. Right? But I think the biggest thing was he signed his name. He said, "I'm sending you this money, vote for me," and that's what happened. It's a lack of knowledge on that
But
end.
why is it sticking with us so much? Like, why is it? It's still there. If you go watch like TikTok, because like I'm a TikTok girly now. Like, oh my god, I really love TikTok. And you go on TikTok and you see Don Lemon and you see other people going out in the street, and when they talk to a certain demographic and they talk about who they're going to vote for, and if the person say Trump, that money is attached to it as to why. Why does it have such a hold on? Because it can't
Like I said,
just the
there's
12.
no one reason why. I think most of it comes down to critical thinking skills and education, and I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna stop there.
Um,
Jess,
so let's
I'm gonna be
let's
offending my people, and y'all not dumb. I
let's
think y'all dumb.
let's let's start with the fact that the stimulus checks were for a certain um wage threshold, right? So let's start there. Yes, I got to go there. I'm going there.
Okay, we're gonna
Um,
move to the next question.
no, we're not. No, we're not.
Your brain is stressing me out.
No, I'm not. So because there was a certain wage threshold, $1,200, there are some people who have never seen that amount of money one time on a check. Unfortunately, you may not see it that way, but it's a fact in this country. Median income in the country ranges between 40 to 50,000, right? That's the median household income. And so $1,200 on a check and then another $600. And then let's also not forget the child tax incentive credit, right? That was also a taxed on. Let's also not forget the PPP loans, right? Let's
They're going to
also,
jail.
right? However, there were a lot of people who got them, right? When you calculate all of that, then the unemployment, right? So that's also the people who were unemployed during the time getting the extra $600 per week, not to an extra $300 per week. Let's calculate all this money that was going around out there, right? It's not just stimmies. People say it's just stimmies, they'll say that, but there were a lot of people who came up during that time. Unfortunately, they went to Tulum and blew the money, but there were some folks who really came up during that time over with some money. It's a fact. And so when you think about all of the COVID money that was happening, there were some people who never saw that amount of money in their lifetime ever. Yes, there are a lot of them going to jail, but there are a lot of them who got it. There are a lot of them who did not, right? Some of them who slipped through the cracks. So unfortunately, Trump waited. He knew, because he's a marketing genius. One thing I will give him, if he don't do nothing else, right? If he don't do nothing else good, the man is a marketing genius. And so he waited to sign the checks purposely because he knew having his name on it would help him. And so here we are.
but to your point, Jazz, it brings up another point. A certain segment of the population do not see Trump as a politician.
Correct.
So when Trump got into office, and he also gave them the money. Like, oh, this is someone that's not a part of a system, that's not a politician, that isn't part of the government, who they see as the enemy and holding us
Correct.
down. That's another reason why a lot of the population supported Trump,
Yes.
especially after they gave him this money, because they don't see him as a Kamala or Barack Obama or the sheriff or police officers locking us up. They just see him as a businessman who ended up winning office and us, trying to help out the lower level people. Well, not the lower level, but the
Yeah.
economically disadvantaged people. That also played a large part in it as well.
But there was just overall, there was just a lot of COVID money. It just is what it is. Like you're just talking stimmies, but I had to think about it when I saw the question holistically. You know, I had a family member who was 19, 20 at the time, getting unemployment, an extra $600 a week on top of 300, $900.
Didn't know that.
No,
And
I'm
I'm
serious.
figuring
Let
out
me.
what was I doing wrong.
But let's run through the numbers, right? If you're 19 years old and you're getting $900 a week, that's $3,600 a month. Times that times 3 or 4 months, right? Then you get the PP, then you getting a STEMI, then your mama and cousin them might have got a PPP loan for 30
My
bands.
cousin and them.
Like it just think about all the money that was out there. Like it'll never happen again, right? We all know that, right? But there was a lot of COVID money floating around. And so it's not only just STEMIs. When I saw that question, I was like, let me think a little deeper than this. It's not only just STEMIs. There are a lot of people who left the workforce because of the COVID money. Like they started businesses and whatever. So it just, again, this will go to your question around what we're going to talk about later with Black men and the alignment with that and all of that. I don't want to get into that piece, but it was a lot of COVID money floating around. It wasn't just STEMIs. And it was during his time. So unfortunately, it looks like he was the one that was doing it. And because people don't understand economics, they thought it was his economy, but it was really Barack Obama's economy. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You've been saying this all night. Like it's you. He's really taking his crown right now. So we understand that there was a lot of money floating around. Okay, cool. Now move on another topic, which is Project 2025. I'm sure that you guys all have heard about Project 2025 Foundation. Now, for the people who are not aware of Project 2025, I'm going to kick it to Jasmine. What 25, and then Brandon, I want to go to you to kind of give your point of view on why Trump kind of distanced himself with Project 2025.
Can we flip it and let him talk about Project 2025, and then I do the response, because that's what we had kind of like, I don't know. Just
fine. I can talk about it briefly. I'm not going to be long because it's almost my bedtime.
Not you dictating how I operate. Hold on. Not you dictating how I operate, but I like how you doing it. So go ahead, Swiftly.
Okay, like I said, I'm not going to be brief too because it's on my bedtime. So Project 2025 is a document, a list of potential policies for the incoming president, Donald Trump, if he wins the election. And it's essentially just a right-wing playbook on what should take place in American society if Trump becomes president. For example, I think one of the sticking points was getting rid of the Department of Education and just privatizing all of education, right? Taking money away from schools, so on and so forth. It's just essentially what it is a playbook on how to ensure that the white power structure stays in power. And that's pretty much it. But looking at it from the different agencies, the different policies, what should be passed, what should be eliminated, where money should go, that's what they wrote up.
But do you think that Project 2025 is realistic if Trump comes into office? Could you think it can have life?
I saw Jasmine. I thought she was
about to chime in.
Essentially, yes. I mean, if Trump becomes president, I don't know what he will or won't do. So that doesn't take anything off the table. Yes, he probably could get rid of the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, so on and so forth, and privatize those areas, or just put them all under one umbrella and say, hey, I'm not giving you no money, make it work, and put that money somewhere else. So yes, it's definitely a possibility.
Okay, Jasmine, why do you think that former President Donald Trump has distanced himself and said that he doesn't support Project 2025. When in actuality, a good portion of people, 140 if I'm not mistaken, of people who now work at the Heritage Foundation was a part of his um, office and administration.
A couple things. So the first thing I think is when it got out that they would dismantle the Department of Education, that was not good, right? So that's part of Project 2025 is dismantling the Department of Education. So that means that Pell Grants would no longer be in existence. And a lot of our classmates went to school on Pell Grants. And so unfortunately that would be dismantled. Um, that's the first thing. But I also think that it's not that he's distanced himself. I believe he's just doing it under a different umbrella or a different saying or a different way, because Project 2025 now is a buzz term or a buzzword, very similar to how DEI is a buzzword on the opposite side, right? So it's comparable to that. So for example, a lot of companies who have said, oh, we're dismantling our diversity, equity, inclusion departments. They're really not doing it. They're just moving it to different departments. They're still doing the work, but they're just not terming it DEI, right? So on the flip side of that, with Project 2025, I don't believe he's distanced himself. I believe it's just doing it under a different umbrella and a different namesake, because it's now a buzzword to the point where it can be bad publicity. Like I said, yet again, one thing I will give him is he's a marketing person. So he knows that this isn't going well. This got some bad tempo. This might lose. Yeah, nah, let's distance from it, but let's just throw it under a different umbrella.
Do you think that's good, or do you think that would hurt, or do you think that's hurting him, or that's shifting from just putting it under a different umbrella? Do you think that helped him, or do you think that may have hurt him?
Statistically, a lot of, and I don't have the exact number, but a lot of Donald Trump supporters are non-college educated voters, right? And so I don't believe it's hurting him in any way whatsoever. I do believe him putting it under a different umbrella helps with his college educated voters, because it still is a buzzword, like I said, that is not, it's not friendly. It's being thrown around really in a terrible light. And so his base, it won't affect his base at all, because again, like I said, his base statistically, don't have the exact number, but it's non-college educated voters. And so I don't think it's going to affect him whatsoever. I think it more so will help him with his college educated voters, because now he's putting it under a different umbrella.
All right. So I want us to move on to the Black experience. We are all college educated individuals, all in our well-respected careers, right? And I want to highlight something in particular that I'm seeing that we kind of touched on earlier, which is how this race has been played out. So my question to you, it has been said, and can be argued that Vice President Kamala Harris is arguably one of the most qualified people who ran for office, right? Do you think, but yet she has to in my opinion, overperform, be overly exceptional and on point at all times, because everything is criticized for her. Whereas former President Donald Trump is playing a different field. He's playing a different game. He could just show up, say whatever, stand 45 minutes and dance at a rally, and people still support. Do you think that sexism and racism is playing a part in this election?
Racism and sexism plays a part in everything in American society.
I'm talking about specifically in this election, where it is clear.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And why do you think so? What do you from because racism definitely played a part in, like you said, past elections, President Obama and things of that nature. But I feel like this feels different. This feels, now granted, this is different, but this also feels really different. What is the difference between the experiences that Vice President Kamala Harris is having versus how Trump is allowed to show up? Because what it's really giving is corporate America. And I'm just leaving, you can feel that how you want to feel that. But the corporate people know what I'm talking about, and as far as the Black experience is concerned. But it's giving where you have to show up, be twice. You remember that scene on Scandal when Papa Pope was telling Olivia, I say Olivia, what's her name was on there? What characters? Olivia Pope, yeah, Olivia Pope, that you gotta be twice as good, all of the whole little spiel. When you said yes, it is different. What do you see are the specifics when it comes to the difference of treatment, coverage, critique? What is different? Put a name on it. What is different?
I'm trying to think of a name to give it. Jazz, what do you think? Because you work in corporate, but in terms of her having to perform twice as good to get half as far, that's the country in a nutshell as it relates to the experience of Black women in every segment of society. It's just highlighted now that Kamala is running for president. She cannot make any mistakes at any campaign rallies. She can't say anything wrong as it relates to her policies or how she's going to approach being president. She has to defend twice over her policies and her approach to being DA when she was in California. So much misinformation coming out of in the media. And she also has to deal with Trump saying he'll give tax cuts to all these corporations. So now they're being a little bit harder on Kamala as opposed to Trump just giving him a slap on the cheek and saying, okay, we're not going to cover you in a negative light whatsoever. So racism and sexism play a part? Absolutely. But Jazz, what do you think?
Yeah.
Throwing you the ball. Jackson, so what are your thoughts?
First thing, do you know that Kamala Harris is the first presidential candidate in history to have served in all three branches of government? All three: judicial, executive, and legislative. So when I hear people say, well, I just don't know if she's qualified.
It's even self-hatred.
It boils my blood. That's the first thing. First presidential candidate in history to have served in all three branches of government. I'm gonna start there. Not only does she have a degree, bachelor's degree, she went to law school. Not only did she go to law school, she was a prosecutor. Not only was she a prosecutor, she was an attorney general. Not only was she an attorney general, she was a United States senator. And she is currently vice president and has served as president for all of 80 minutes in November of 2021 when Joe Biden was undergoing surgery. I don't think that this is uncommon to the Black women who are in the channel right now who understand you got to be twice as good, 3 times as good, 4 times as good. I do believe Joe Biden played chess with Kamala Harris. And I told Brandon this yesterday. I believe him playing chess means that he knew this inequity that we deal with in society, just as women, Black women, whatever. And so what he did was so intentional and strategic, and I absolutely love it. He waited until the news cycle ended after the Republican convention ended. And he tossed it to her. He stepped out of the race. The Sunday morning news shows were over. It was an opportunity where he had COVID or some kind of illness or something. And he was like, you know what? It's time. And he propelled her to be able to take the nomination. And so I believe that a lot of this is rooted in just the patriarchy, heterosexual patriarchal standards that we still live under. And so, yeah, all of this, it boils my blood when I talk about it, because I've seen it in corporate time and time again, where I've been in meetings and I've literally had to have a sponsor, like a man, to back me up when I say something. To say, oh, Jasmine, that's a great idea. Did y'all hear what she just said? It happens time and time and time again. And again, I think that this is just a structure that unfortunately we all know that our country has not been fair to everybody forever, right? Ever and ever. So when I hear that term, make America great again, I'm like, what point you want to go back to?
Specifically,
so,
what point? Like, I want to
like,
know specifically,
what
like,
point?
what point?
I
Um,
saw a TikTok about that too. Like, there was some guys debating. I can't remember who it was, but one of the white guys asked a black Republican voter, "When was America great again?
yeah,
Would you go back to that exact
right.
in that year?" And he couldn't give the exact, like he can give an exact date. Like at what point before Trump was president? It wasn't the 1950s or 60s,
Right. You don't want that.
right? So
That was my grandmother marching in
Yeah.
1954 at Alabama State, right? You don't want to go back to 1954 for the right to sit on the front of the bus, right? You don't want to go back to 1912 when women didn't have a right to vote. You don't want to go back to 1875 when I was, when Brandon would have been 3/5 of a man. You know what I'm saying? Like you just like it Plessy versus Ferguson. Like I don't know. Like I'm just
What
trying to
specific
figure out.
thing you give?
Yeah.
Right.
So all of these things, right, play into the factor of um European patriarchal standards that just continue to filtrate all of our society. And unfortunately, she is at the highest ranking level. She is accomplished. Not only that, she also plays the part with the hair. I mean, let's think about it as black women.
Bruh,
Like
hair be laid. You hear
she
me?
plays the part. Like, and I'm a braids girl. I keep braids. And I could only imagine Michelle Obama didn't wear braids till she left the White House. Right. So all of these things she plays, like one thing I appreciate about too, you hadn't seen Kamala Harris wear no pants to no black church yet. You know what I'm saying? like she does not play. She is every step is meticulous.
Yes.
Every step. And so it's tough. And that perfectionism that we all have to live in as black women is tough. And I'm definitely hoping because this is Jasmine speaking, nobody job, nobody Greek letter organization. When she's elected, it's gonna get even worse.
My God, today. It's so many words I want to call you. Swift. As a black man, right? There's commentary about from other black men who was like, I'm not voting for no woman, coming into office, the sexism that's coming into play. What is your comment about other men that specifically identifying as black men who just not voting for her just because she's a woman and a black woman at that? Do you have any comment on that? The sexism of it all?
they're ignorant. Like so I don't have those conversations because the people that I associate with wouldn't make those type of comments to begin with. So that's kind of a hard question to answer. I do think that education and economic status plays a part in it because you really understand what it means if Kamala becomes president as opposed to if Trump is president for Black America, for Black men, for Black women. And the people that I associate with, they don't make those type of comments. But for those that do make those comments, I really just they are ignorant and that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We are in 2024. Black women are some of probably the most educated. Well, I think statistics show this, the most educated populace in America. Um, and honestly, the requirements to be president of the United States, if you look at the Constitution, they are not high. So I don't know why people keep going back to, oh, she's not qualified. Do you know what it means to be qualified to be president of the United States? Like it's not a hard bar.
What is it to be?
No, somebody Google it and put it in the chat because it's not a hard bar to reach. So I really don't understand some of these arguments, and I try to stray away from it because when people like that make a statement and they're 25, 30, 40 years old, they are stuck in their ways. There's no changing it. And there's absolutely no point in me going back and forth with that person. I rather just go on by my day. But I hope that they do become educated and make those changes. But as of right now, I don't waste my time with it. And I don't have those conversations with those people. With that populace, with that demographic of individuals.
Heard.
Just being quite honest.
I'll add here.
Okay.
those Black men that we're talking about, or the groups of people who, choose that route to vote, what I'm noticing is a trend in they don't want to dismantle the patriarchy. They just want their turn. They want access to it, right? And so it he has done a very good job with going to the podcast bros, and going to some of those channels and having conversations with some of those Black men, about that whole pulling yourself up by your bootstrap conversation. And that plays at the heartstrings of a lot of Black men, because if you want to get to a Black man, like if you want, the way you talk to Black men is to talk to them about making some money, right? And if you talking about making some money, because every Black man I know trying to make some money, and I think that's where there has been a disconnect with the Democratic Party versus what he's been doing, is he's talking about how to make some money. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. And so that rhetoric will carry over. And so, and then of course there is that conservatism that is in the Black community from the church, Southern Christian conservatives. I have family members who are strictly voting for him because of they are pro-life. That's it. And I say what a privilege it is to be a single issue voter. Because if that's the only thing you got to worry about, you don't have to worry about taxes. You ain't got to worry. You ain't got to worry about nothing else. And the only thing you have to worry about is reproductive and making sure that, pro-life.
If
So
you're not, the fact that you're not, some people are not even in the tax bracket to really
yeah, to have the
appreciate what Trump is
conversation.
doing, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be in that tax bracket, bro, and you're
Yeah.
not in that tax bracket.
Yeah, they don't want to dismantle the patriarchy. They just want their turn.
To lean into that, and I want to jump because I don't want us to be on here forever. But Swift, you don't gotta you got one more. You got one more. What do you think about what is said about the NAACP saying that they find that over a quarter of the young professional Black men are moving more into Republicans and voting for Donald Trump? What is that to be said that over time it seems like um, Black men are more aligning? And I don't know if it's Republican, because I Sequez, am separating Republicans from Trump. I'm separating the two. A Trump and a Republican is two totally different things. I would not be friends with somebody who's a Trumper, but I will be friends with somebody who is Republican. I don't mind if you're Republican, liberal, whatever. But if you vote for that man, maybe girl, maybe boy, we're not friends. You know what I mean? There's no, but I respect you as a human being, bare minimum. But it seems like there is a shift where Black men are becoming more aligned with Republicans, and there's more coming out feeling more confident to align with Trump. And then you have President Obama, who came out swinging with his comments, and then after that, Vice President Kamala Harris came out with the Black man agenda, specifically target to, right? It seems as if for the first time, I don't know if it's ever, but for the first time in a long time, Black men are now really a part of the conversation. I think it looks like Black women has always been consistent and has always shown up. You can look at the AKA, as soon as it was announced, AKAs was like, what's up? And then there was a whole slew of like the Black men, the white women, and the white men coming in to support. But now it seems like the Black men is now being a good focus point for the first time in a long time. What do you guys say about that? That Black men are moving more into the Republican space, and now we have agendas specifically targeted to them.
So I think it's more visible now with the rise of social media. We're able to see Black men from all walks of life, from all parts of the United States, who are aligned with Republicans or the conservative movement. I don't think it's just Republicans. I think it's just conservatism and their approach to certain policies. For example, like Jazz said, with reproductive rights being against abortion, those Black men who may see or who may align more with conservative policy as it relates to tax breaks for companies or businesses, just that traditionalist mindset that comes with conservatism, right? They align more with that. So, but it's highlighted more because they have a voice now. They're a little bit more visible with the rise of social media. Now, in terms of the NAACP saying that we're trying to get more black men on the left side of the spectrum, I went and looked at some of their polling and some of the things they've done. They only polled like 1,000 people, so I'm not sure how. Yeah, I'm not really sure how accurate that really is. And again, the more black people and black men become educated, the more I see them leaning to the left. So I'm not sure how accurate that is, and especially in places like Georgia's or the here in Texas, the South, the East Coast, you see more black men aligned with the Democratic Party, from what I've been seeing. Especially, like I said, the more they go up in tax bracket, the more education they receive, the more likely they are to lean to the left, and the more they marry black women.
True that, because there is a notion out there that they're all moving in direction and all dating the other groups, but they're out here, they're supporting all that. Jasmine, from you're married, right? You're married, and wait, am I allowed to say that? That's fine. You're married, you're with a black man. Do you see in your home, or just in the surroundings that you have, where you see more of your men around you are aligning with the more conservative viewpoint, or do you see something totally different?
No, they smoking hookah at the grass wall. They voting Democrats.
Thank you for answering for me, Brandon. Thank you. Okay. So yes, I am married. I am married to a black man who is not African American, right? And when I say that, that means that he is not a descendant of American slavery. He is a first generation American whose parents were moved here from the Caribbean. So he is a part of the diaspora, as they say. His family is very different when it comes to their viewpoints, how they see the world, etc. Right? A lot of them lean much more patriarchal, very conservative. He, on the other hand, because he's first generation American, he has been ingrained in the American culture. He's not canceling out my vote for Kamala because he's also voting for Kamala, right? And so when I say, what are black men doing, that I see, the black men I'm around are college educated. The black men I'm around are, excited to vote for Kamala because they have an opportunity to make history. They want to be on the right side of history. So I don't have, now I do have some family members, like I said, because of, religious views, whether it's LGBT rights, whether it's pro-life. It's there are those that fall in between the cracks where they're like, okay, yeah, I'm voting for that side because of that. But the majority of the men I'm around are not canceling out my vote, and I can appreciate that.
Real quick, just like a petty question. Would y'all be friends, or would you date someone who voted for Trump?
No.
Date? Absolutely not. What? Like?
You said absolutely you would?
Not. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Friends? Probably. I don't think any of my friends would even consider voting for Trump. So, and it's hard to make new friends when you get up in age. And no. If I'm around you, you probably are voting for Kamala. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, no.
Mm-hmm. Especially because you see, because there have been comments about people like not understanding how people will allow politics to interrupt friendships, and I'm like, I don't understand how you cannot. In this space, specifically this space, I wouldn't say like if you voted for Al Gore, so what? I don't care. But in this particular time,
Al Gore was a Democrat.
I'm sorry.
Al Gore was a Democrat.
Al Gore was a Democrat. Okay.
You mean if you voted for like a George Bush or Mitt Romney?
I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. But just saying in general, I wouldn't care. But in this particular time and place, absolutely, it matters to me. Not, so Swift, if you come up with a girl that got a Make America Great Again shirt, I'm blocking you, and I'm gonna dog you, and I'm put you in a group chat and just talk about you real bad.
I
So
might do make Jackson State great again, but I wouldn't do a make America great again. No, okay, let me go back
Yeah,
on mute.
he and I wouldn't be friends no more. I'd be nah.
I want to move
I
to
know,
our
I know
last
that.
topic. I'm gonna cut some stuff out, but I'm gonna move to last topics. One, I want to jump through. We talked about the election, and we talked about the impact of social media on the election. And how do you think social media is impacting the voting, especially when you have people like Dr. Umar and people like that who are saying to hold the black vote, right? Vote, put in something where it's something for us specifically. Hold that vote. Don't vote. And we know that social media is an influencer, no matter what. It has a level of influence. What do you say for people out there who's telling people to hold the vote? And then from there, we'll jump into how people are setting ballots, boxes on fire, and stuff like that. But
Why is it that we're always telling people on the Democratic side to not vote? Like that's
that's my question.
rhetorical. It's like rhetorical to me, but it's like I never hear this when I listen to the Joe Rogans of the world. Like I never hear the don't vote, like hold your vote. Like I only hear it on the Democratic side. So that's what I say when I started earlier. Like if your vote didn't count, they wouldn't be trying to suppress it so hard. Right. And so that's yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
And I only see this during general election season, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We see it with Dr. Umar, we saw it with Ice Cube, we see it with other celebrities in the black circle, the black demographics. But like Jazz, I don't see this on the other side.
No.
And social media plays a big role in getting people out to vote or not vote. Because when you think about the socialization process, I talk about this with my class all the time. Really, there's only three major social institutions that give us our ideals, our beliefs, our values. That's the family, that's church, and that's the school. We're not going to church anymore. Our mamas and daddies and our best friends, you see that on social media all the time. In school, they skipping school. You're not really getting your values from school. Like my third grade teacher was my next door neighbor, so it's only so much I could do in school. And she imparted a lot of wisdom into me because she was also the usher, not the usher, the at the church. The had on the white hat with the all black, y'all know who I'm talking about. I'll
The
get you. Who?
You know something about the usher?
The other boy, yeah, she was an usher at the church too. So she was heavily involved in my life and imparted a lot of values in me. You're not seeing this with the younger generation. So where are you getting your values from, your ideas, your beliefs? From social media.
TikTok. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you get all these social media influencers saying, oh, you shouldn't vote because of X, Y, and Z. That's really framing the way they approach this election, which could be good or bad. And for the most part, it's bad because you get Dr. Umar and all these other Joe Rogan and other algorithm people saying, don't vote because of X, Y, and Z. So they're not going to vote because they don't know anything else. They're not getting it from anywhere else. They're getting it from
We have
social
a
media.
slow slope to hell. But to y'all focus to combat that though, right? To level on to what you said, Dr. Swift. Now you have, because social media is such an influence in almost everything that we do, you have the Kamala Harris, who is now doing TikTok challenges. She had, in the club, we all fam. That's my favorite TikTok. In the club, we all fam. She did that with Usher. You see her doing some stuff with Victoria Monet, and they're doing these TikTok challenges and all that. So
Yeah.
she's been she
Also,
was on SNL, right? She was on last night. I think she was on SNL or
the
something
Stage
like that.
Room. She was on the Breakfast Club. Like she's
No,
going to
she's
where that
really
generation, the young
playing
generation.
right. She's really playing into that. But then, according to polls, the reason why people are feeling Trump is because he's real, right? He's not a politician. So, do you think that playing into the social media aspect is hurting or helping her when the cry out from the voters is saying that we want something that's real, that's authentic, that's approachable, and we don't want this cookie cutter type of politician where you have they both are on kind of like the far ends of the spectrum. So do you think that Kamala Harris approach is helping her, or is it hurting her in this election, specifically targeted to the younger generations that are more open to a different way of operating?
Well, from the conversations I've had with the people, my students in my classroom, I don't think it's hurting her. She is being more visible, and you see her, like I said, on the Shade Room, on some other popular podcasts, Breakfast Club, so on and so forth. That's not hurting her. The individuals that were going to vote for Kamala are still going to vote for Kamala despite her going on these social media platforms. They're not going to say, "Oh, I'm not voting for her because she went on the Breakfast Club." They're still going to vote for her. She's trying to attract that generation of Black voters who were not going to vote to begin with and don't know her policy. She's trying to educate them on why they should vote for her. So either they weren't voting for her to begin with, or they were voting for her. So either way, she wouldn't lose. She wouldn't lose. It wouldn't hurt her, in my opinion. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you, Jess?
I really think her outreach to Gen Z has been top tier. I do follow the same TikTok channel that you're talking about. The Kamala HQ channel is phenomenal. And I think that her outreach has been to just so many different demographics. Do I believe it's helping or hurting her? I believe it's helping her more than anything. I don't believe it's hurting her. The only thing that I will say that I hear a lot of times, because I grew up with an attorney in a household, is that I think people are tired of attorneys being the elected officials, right? And so I think that's why her choosing Walz as her running mate was a big help, because when it was Barack Obama and Joe Biden, they both attorneys, right? I mean, and it's great to have that legal expertise, but it's really refreshing to know that Mike Walz was a former civics teacher. Like, he understands government outside of it being a legal field, right?
And doesn't have any stops.
He was a football coach, right? Like, he just is, he seems like your, like your up the street little league coach. Like, that's the vibe.
He's so
right?
personable. I love his
And
video he did with the running. It was so cute. I love that.
That was also to help with some of the swing voters in some of these states, some of the more purple states, as they say. So yeah, I think her strategies and her tactics have been really, really good. Do I believe there have been some people who have been stumping for her and speaking on her behalf that could have kept some of their comments to themselves 2 or 3 weeks ago? Absolutely. Not gonna say no names. I'm not gonna say no names. Nope.
You definitely called me and was like, "Sir, why he did that?" Jasmine definitely was annoyed.
Because
I wasn't offended.
Because we're not right now. We're trying to gain votes, not lose them. So and the group he was speaking to is already very temperamental and feel forgotten. So that's a whole nother conversation for another time.
The male ego is so fragile.
So that's a whole other conversation for another time. And I love him, and I don't have any issue with him whatsoever. But I saw that they did damage control. I'm in corporate. I know what a PR spin is. That Monday they put out a black man plan. So it is what it is. But yeah, I don't think
the corporate girlies, we're here.
I don't think her outreach has hurt her at all. I think what she's been doing is great, reaching certain demographics who probably have felt unheard. Yeah.
It's just sad that she got to go on these platforms to begin with. They shouldn't have the reach to have, but that's another conversation we'll make.
Yeah.
Expound on that a little bit. Give me 2 minutes.
Why does Charlemagne have more reach than Creflo?
Creflo Dollar?
Mm-hmm.
Girl, isn't Creflo Dollar headed to jail?
I wasn't gonna go Creflo Dollar. But why does the Shade Room, why is that the main source of news and publicity for a the demographic of that it reaches. Like that makes absolutely no sense to me, none whatsoever.
Why does it not make sense?
Because a lot of people that I see, their reality is based off of what they see on social media, in the shade room, and all these neighborhood talk, so on and so forth. These outlets play a large part in that, which
For sure.
frames how they act in society. And some people you can't tell them anything because of their they've been imparted these values from these social media outlets. So you
But
can't tell
even
a
think about it for Rose friend, it's always kind of been there. If you even
no,
look at
no.
yes, even if you look at when we had prior to the No Diddy phase, you had, the BET when they was doing like the vote or die or whatever. There's
Oh, no, I'm
always
not talking about just
some
voting. I'm talking about
media
holistically.
outlet that
I'm
had
talking
a
about
good post.
mom, you no.
No,
I'm talking about holistically. Like if you talk to a 13-year-old girl now, 14-year-old girl now, tell her that she doing something wrong, she may cuss you out. When
Mm-hmm.
y'all were 12, 13, 14 years
Mm-hmm.
old, and someone
You
told you
listen.
something that was older, you would listen and sit
You
your tail
listen.
down. And that is bred out of what they see on social media. Point blank period.
I feel you.
It's
But also
doing more than
I blame the parents. That's not just social media. I also think there's some parental advisories that need to be happening, and everybody shouldn't be a parent, but that's
But
neither.
in the, I mean, I don't know if it's been debunked or not, but in the shade room ran by the swallowed up team.
We're not,
every
because I don't want to put, because it said it was
conspiracy.
also written by TD Jakes, and I don't know. And
That's
it
why
just
I said the swallowed up team. I didn't know.
Have you ever been swatted?
this,
Okay,
this
okay.
is why this is why
and we
this
prayed
is
before.
why this is
Let the record,
this
let the
is
record
see.
show.
I
We
knew
did
I
a
knew
prayer
I knew
before this thing went live.
I knew
And
Brandon was
Jasmine is
thinking.
not operating in Jesus Christ.
See, I
So
knew
y'all
Brandon
never
was
been
thinking how
y'all
I
never
was
been
thinking.
swallowed up?
My, hallelujah. Moving forward, because y'all not about to get me, because I know a
Okay.
Savior named Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
When we were prepping yesterday, that didn't
It
come
didn't
up.
come up. It
This
didn't
was
come up.
clearly, truly like best friend train of thought.
I'm not taking that. My. Listen.
I'm just
Get
saying.
ready, get ready, get ready, get ready.
So we're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving
Okay,
on.
that's nice.
Because Jasmine is wild, and she's not even drinking. She's doing electrolytes. So moving forward, let's go to the rage at the polls. We got people doing the absolute most. One, I want to talk about, as we know, there's been a couple fires at what do you call them, the ballot boxes, right? The ballot boxes. There have been people setting the ballot boxes on fire. One is, did I read this correctly? That if you mail in your ballot, you can check online to see if it was received. Like you're supposed to
I would
check
think so.
online.
I
I'm
would
sorry.
think so.
So for the people whose ballots were kablooey, right? And do you think that kind of, let me ask my full question first of all. So there's a rage. I call it the rage of the polls. You have people doing the ballot boxes. You have the voter purge that's happening in Virginia. You have like all these different states that's just operating in like kind of, what is it called, the National Voter Registration Act, where you're not supposed to do anything radical or something 90 days before the election. Whatever. They do a whole lot of. You got old boy Elon Musk who
Sequez,
got $1 million.
sequez,
So I,
sequez.
I
Let me
get
help
your
you.
question.
Sequez,
I
let me
get
help you. Voter suppression.
yeah, and I'm gonna say that this isn't anything new.
Right.
Let me finish my question
19.
first. Let me finish my
Okay, go
train of
ahead.
thought.
Go ahead.
You have you have Elon Musk giving out $1 million. They was trying to get that gone, but the judge was like, nah, he could keep going. There's just
Mhm.
a lot of different avenues where people are trying to suppress votes. And again, like you said, like you want to say, Swift, that this is nothing new, but I feel like new, but this just seems very egregious. It seems like it's very in your face. It seems very um, intentional more than others. I feel like before they would do some sly stuff. Now they don't have to. They don't have to. I feel like people be more. Why are you looking at me like that? Because it's making me feel.
Because when you think about the history of this country,
Mhm.
if you're a black person and you tried to vote, you could get hung.
Right.
You had to guess how many marbles were in a jar in order to
Yeah.
vote. You had to pay a poll. You had to
You had to pay a
pay
poll
to vote.
tax.
Yes,
Right. Poll
Swift.
tax.
Yes, Swift. That is true. But two things can be true at once. Yes, those that was the history.
So my
However, we
point.
have started to hide it more. It became more hidden because of the decorum behind it.
I,
Now we don't have to have decorum. Now we don't have to fake like I like you. Now we don't have to fake our true feelings. We can be brutally honest with it. And it seems that we are now at a point where decorum, dignity is out the window, and we're now straight beast mode. To me, it's alarming where we are in as far as regarding to time. Is that fair to say? It's
no,
like,
because voter suppression has always been here, and it no matter how you dress it up, like you said with the
Mhm.
poll tax, with being hung, going back, Mississippi, you may not have a polling location anywhere for the next 20, 30, 40 miles up to the
Yep.
next town, and you don't have a car, so you can't vote to begin with. Some states you can't early vote at all, right? And you can't take off the vote. Like voter suppression tactics have always been. We can see it now on a larger scale because of social media, but
yeah.
this has always voter suppression has always existed in this country against African Americans.
Mhm.
And it's not going away anytime soon.
Can you, Swift, and you, Jasmine, give like what is something like a key thing that a voter who is going, if you did not do early voting, I did early voting.
Mhm.
Um, if you did not do early voting and you're going to the polls tomorrow, what are some of the things that people should be made aware of regarding going to the polls?
Be
Well,
aware of
one, go ahead. Go
hold
ahead. Go ahead,
on. Ladies
Brandon.
first. Go ahead.
Okay. The first thing is don't wear a candidate's paraphernalia. That's the first thing because you will get turned away. You can't wear Kamala Harris for president, Donald Trump for president. You will get turned away. If you want to wear your D9, go be great. The second thing is I would say make sure you bring your ID with you because certain states, depending on where you are, require it. Certain states don't, but just make sure your ID and also make sure that your ID is up to date. It's kind of late if you didn't vote already, but make sure that your ID is not expired because I've heard of people having that issue. Now, there have been some purging of some names from what I've heard in certain states where people have been purged from voter registrations. If that does happen, you can reach out to your local NAACP. And they will, there's a lot of like election integrity happening within the NAACP and the ACLU and other organizations. But hopefully, if the crowd who typically follows you, that I know follows you, probably voted early, and if there's anybody who has not voted yet, like you said when you prayed, Squeeze, hopefully we can help stir you in the right direction to make the best decision for you and your family.
Amen. Dr. Swift.
I was gonna echo pretty much some of the same things Jazz said, especially about your ID. Some states require it, some
Mhm.
do not, and you can still vote. Also, make sure that you are voting at the right location because voting,
Mhm.
early voting and voting day of, that may be two different
Mhm.
processes for certain states.
Yep.
Early voting, you can pretty much vote at any polling location within your city limits. Uh, Voting day of, you have to go to your precinct.
And you
So
can
make sure
find that online.
you can find it online. But if you're not at the right precinct, if your address has changed, whatever, you can ask for provisional ballot to make sure that your vote is still counted. And just be aware of all the laws, procedures,
Mhm.
policies that come into play with your state, with your city, your county, so on and so forth. And if you have, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions to the poll workers,
Mhm.
to like Jazz said, the NAACP. Just
Yeah.
ask questions and stay in line. Do not get out the line.
Yeah. Don't get out the line.
Hold the line. Because
Mm.
that line was long. I did the library. We did the library on Halloween. Man, it took us almost 2 hours to get in.
Oh,
And
and
prepare yourself because we won't know the results tomorrow night.
And another thing, if you are in line by 7 o'clock, they can't say you can't vote. So
Right.
make sure you stay your ASS in line to vote.
Right.
Stay in line.
Just because you don't
Okay.
cast your vote at 7 doesn't mean you can't vote. So yeah.
I want us to wrap this up. I want to get Swift in bed, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little too. Well, oh, whoa! It's when Jasmine did that face, it came off wrong. Baby daddy, if you listening, like you know, it ain't like that. But a few things. One, to you guys, if you guys feel safe or comfortable, what is your predictions on the election? Do you guys feel comfortable saying your predictions on the
I think
election?
Colin is going to win in a large margin. I'm gonna just say a large margin.
Are you talking about popular vote, electoral, or both?
Both.
Okay. Jasmine, what's your predictions? The pessimist.
Don't name me the pessimist. I'm cautiously optimistic that she will pull out and win. Now, here's where I'm concerned. The purple states. And I know I want to talk about that just a little bit because we hear that term a lot, squeeze, and I know people
Go
may or
ahead.
may not
Let's talk about
know.
it because I'm trying to wrap up.
People may or may not know what a purple state is. So a purple state is a state that can either go blue or red. And you know, when you do the primary colors and you mix blue and red together, it makes purple. So that's why they call it the purple states. So states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia,
Arizona.
Arizona, and Nevada. They're
Did
all
Georgia just become more purple? Because it
yes.
was a hard
So
red for a long
so if
time.
you think about the reason being, if you think about the states I just named, right? Like Michigan has Detroit, right? That's a whole host of black folks, black and brown people, right? You think about Pennsylvania, that's Philadelphia. You think about North Carolina, that's the influx of people going to Charlotte, right? You think about Georgia, that's Atlanta. You think about Arizona, that's Phoenix. That's the liberals coming from California trying to get cheaper homes in Phoenix. And so, and then also some immigration, things there as well. So if you think about all these purple states, it's really concentrated areas of black and brown cities, right? And so that's why it is such hard work to try to carry those states because you got to try to get that vote out, right? So in Georgia, for example, Stacey Abrams, give her credit. She helped to turn Georgia blue in 2020. I have to give her a black woman her credit where credit is due. However, when we were watching the election results come in, you got all of these random counties like Muskogee and Forsyth and all of that. They come in early, and it looks like Georgia is about to be red, right? But then slowly but surely, you start getting into those 5 metro Atlanta counties, which is Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett, right? Like you start getting into those. And just imagine being a candidate and you waiting on DeKalb County to finish counting votes. It's just the blackest county there is, right? And so where we're concentrated as black and brown people, right? That's where a lot of the swing states are. And really purple states is all, again, as Brandon and I talked about earlier, based around racism, because black folk feel comfortable living around other black people, which is why so many people live in Atlanta and Houston and Philly and Detroit and all that. Not many of us out in Idaho. And so
Or Nashville.
yeah. But again, these states that we're talking about are really going to help to carry her through. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful that she may even turn some states blue tomorrow that we're not expecting.
I'm really interested to see the outcome, and I'm also ready to see the turnout for white women and see how they vote.
Absolutely.
Especially here in Texas. Especially here in Texas, because Kamala has been campaigning hard on reproductive rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see if it changed the minds of those of white women here in these states, Texas, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting so crazy to the point where people are saying that white women are telling their husbands how they're going to vote. They're saying one thing to their husbands and going in the voting booth and doing something totally different.
Yeah.
Ready to see that outcome. I really am.
Isn't that kind of alarming? You think about it, where they have to stroke the ego of their husbands and but then go in private votes another way. That almost sounds a little alarming as far as the psychological safety in the environment. Yes, it does. Yes, it
No,
does.
it's not. When I say it's not alarming, I mean it doesn't sound far fetched. Like it
No
sounds.
problem, but I definitely think that is a little like, bro, wink.
Well, that's you got to look at the reality of a lot of white women in. How can I frame this? Uh, benefiting from their husband making so much money, being in the economic standpoint that they are.
Mhm.
You may have white women who are just at home chilling, or they're benefiting from their husband making so much money. So, would you say something to give up the safety of your home and when your husband is not going to know how you vote anyway?
Um. So, so my stance
Let me
is
shut up because I. You're not
so
talking
so.
But we don't have that. We don't go through that in our.
in our
Yeah, but
community.
I know some of
We
y'all
don't have
struggle.
those
Yeah, we'll
messages.
have those problems.
So my opinion, and I will stand 10 toes down on this,
Of course you would, Jasmine.
as the Gen Zers say. Um, Black women is the way to the Democratic ticket. White women is the way to the White House. So if you don't carry the Black woman vote, you're not going to get on the Democratic ticket. And if you don't carry the white woman vote, you're not going to get to the White House. And so I'm hoping and praying that reproductive rights, as Brandon keeps so nicely terming it, but really it's one thing in there.
No, it's
uh,
reproductive. I
yeah,
just
is the reproductive rights, right? Because there's, let's be real, there's IVF, there's all of these other things that are attached to reproductive rights. It's not just abortion. I know this, right? But I think reproductive rights may save us because it's gone just a little too far. Now, if that's not the case, then we got one hell of a ride ahead of us. Now, let me say this. Because I got my spiritual side too. I got my churchy side. I got the folks I grew up with who are gonna be like, oh, people gonna be saying on Facebook all day tomorrow, I don't care who win the election, Jesus still in control, and all I hear you, Black church. I hear you. 100%.
But you have a church man who was talking. Did y'all see
Yeah.
that about the
No,
white pastor who was condemning the black church?
I get it, but hear me out. I do feel like one of the things I've learned as a Black woman in therapy is you have to feel the emotion. You can't just go to this toxic positivity, right? So prepare yourselves if you got to take the day off work tomorrow, Wednesday, whatever. We all have PTSD from 2016. Whatever you need to do for yourself mentally, do that, because otherwise, we just don't know. And again, prepare yourself because we're not going to know tomorrow night. A lot of these states have massive amount of turnouts. I mean, in Georgia, we had 1 million cast the first week for early voting. So just
I think
know
it's 4 million now.
it's what?
I think it's at 4 million now.
Yeah. So I mean,
Wow.
it's crazy the amount of numbers and turnouts that we're getting. But what I would like to talk about at one point too is the people who just don't vote. Like just like
Oh,
the people who just don't. And
okay.
I just
I don't respect that.
like, I mean, if you think about it, it was 150 million Americans voted in the last presidential election, but there are 320 million Americans, right, that live in this country. So what is happening outside of the people who are convicted felons and don't have the right, and children who aren't 18 yet to be able to vote? What's happening with them other hundreds of millions of people that they're just disengaged? Like, it just, that is the part that gets me. And so
I
yeah,
think that is weird.
yeah. So
But again, I think it goes back to what Dr. Swift was saying, not seeing the importance of it, not seeing the need for it, not
yeah,
interested in our government and how it's ran, just literally no other reason but just disinterest. I do, as we're about to come to a close, I do want to highlight one thing, and I want us to make it quick. What is to be said about when people talk and they said that Trump, when we was under Trump's administration, it was good. The first 3 years was, I mean, when we was under Trump, the economy was bribing. But in actuality, it was really because he inherited such a good economy at the time. Can we talk to the individual really quick? I mean, quick about how Trump inherited the economy that he did, what he did in it, and how Biden inherited the economy that he did, like that transition
So
between those members.
I think I saw a post or a statistic that this will be the first time where a Democrat was coming in not having to clean up a Republican president's mess as it related to the economy. So you saw Barack Obama had to clean up the housing crisis, and we can go on and on. But Trump came in and inherited a great economy that Barack Obama took 8 years to fix and get to where it needed to be. And Kamala is inheriting an economy from Biden where he had to clean up Trump's mess from COVID and so on and so forth. But the average American wouldn't know that, right? They just saw that Trump did what he did, COVID happened, and under Biden, inflation is horrible when they don't know that inflation is horrible because of what was happening under Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can really educate the general populace about this. Let's put it on Shade Room every week. I don't know any other.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. Thank you, Dr. Ward. Jasmine, do you have anything for that voter who is like, it was great under Trump, like everything was low, we was smooth sailing, then we get under Biden, and now everything is high. We're in this recession, but technically, according to the data that I saw, and I may be wrong, but I highly doubt it, we're not really in. I don't know where it is in my notes about. We're not really in the recession, but I'm sorry.
We're not.
We're not in a recession, but there is beliefs out there that we are in this recession and everything is really high, which things are high. And under Trump, it wasn't like that. What would you say? Because Swift just totally left us hanging. What would you say to that voter that feels that way, and how to bring truth to that reality, to his or her reality?
You cannot educate that voter. Their mind is made up.
Hey, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Jay Lovefield.
Yet again, it goes back to education. That's not happening anymore. Whether it's there, we took a class called political economy. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes hand in hand, right? And so unfortunately, the dumbing down of society just is sadly.
Okay, now both are not positive. I'm saying to say
it's sadly happening. But hear me out. Let me finish. I was in the grocery store, and this was when eggs were like crazy, like $6-7. It was this run like maybe like a year or so ago when things were bad, right? And this lady in the grocery store was like, "Ooh, I sure can't wait to get Biden out of there, so that way we could get these grocery prices down." And in my mind, I wanted to like have a conversation with her, but then I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, like, what would I tell this lady? Like, what can I like say to her to be like, this is inflation that they're using is a buzzword really for corporate greed. Cause Biden has nothing to do with, Purdue Farms and how they set the price of chicken. like it's nothing to do with that. And then they'll say, "Oh, well, we have to do this because of what the gas prices are, and it's because of the gas prices and getting the supply chain there." And I'm not about to sit at the grocery store and tell this lady that, right? It's just not gonna happen. So, unfortunately, because politics and economics go hand in hand, and
education.
Yeah, the general society that we live in just does not have that wherewithal or that accountability.
This is going to tell a person who was leading to Trump because of the economy under.
It's corporate greed. It's corporate greed that's happening now.
I'm trying to get a nice little package, and y'all are failing me. I'm trying to say
the educational system has failed all of us.
It's failed all of us.
Moving on. The pessimist of the group. Can you please do your champagne toast for the night? Do you remember champagne toast? So forget that.
Okay, Squeeze. Let me say this. I appreciate you for being eternally optimistic. I genuinely do.
Yes.
I genuinely appreciate that. However, Brandon and I are in this. Like he's in it more than I am because I've taken a different path.
I can't. I want Brandon to
But
be like our next future
but it
senator.
so again, whether you're like in it or not, it's very sad to say this, but the school system, it's so many different factors that have affected this squeeze. I'm just being honest. I'm trying to help you with a package for somebody who's saying Trump's economy was better. There's no way, like it's too hard at this point, squeeze. It's too hard.
Well, I will say this. I am very optimistic about this election, and not only because of Kamala, but because of the subsequent elections that
Yes.
follow or that are on the
Yes.
same ticket.
Yes.
Because you have such a high turnout for Kamala in states like Texas, even if she doesn't win Texas,
Yep.
we may get Ted Cruz out of office, right?
Yes.
So
Amen.
I
I might
am
be Texas.
optimistic
If Ted Cruz.
about because Colin Allred, he did a wonderful, his message is great, right? So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens there. So I am optimistic about that, and I am optimistic about the future because even if we don't get the outcome that we want, we got more people paying attention to the elections now.
Yes.
Even if Trump does get in office, there's going to be a microscope on him. Like you said, you was going to do all this. What's going on?
Yes.
Again, education plays a part because he's saying he's going to put tariffs on foreign companies, and that's not how tariffs work, which is a whole nother conversation I've been spending another 30 minutes on. But
That makes no sense, and not many people to understand that. But go ahead.
But again, I am optimistic. I'm seeing the early vote turnout, like
Yes.
it is high across
Yes. And
all
early
these.
vote turnout typically ties to the Democratic base.
I'm not gonna say that because
I will. I will.
you can say that. I'm not
Go
gonna
ahead.
say that. I am seeing the early vote turnout. I want to see the age breakup to see how that turns out.
Mm-hmm.
But to the individuals that are voting or the individuals that are not voting, I will say please become educated on how voting affects you locally at the state level,
Local elections
at
is
the federal
important,
level,
guys.
and make your decision. Because especially for homeowners, uh, for those individuals who have individuals running for office, such as the sheriff's office, and like these elections affect you. You have 15 potholes up and down Main Street in Jackson, but Chuckway still at M-Bar these elections. So please pay attention to who is on the ballot and know who represents your interests and who you want someone in office to vote on these policies.
Is that your champagne toast, Brandon?
My champagne toast is to tomorrow, even no matter how the election goes, I want to see a high voter turnout. Please go out and vote. I think that builds for a brighter future for America and sets the foundation for years to come. So cheers to
Just
just
to
being
you,
out.
Brandon. I appreciate your positivity at the end because who knows what this girl about to say. Jasmine, what's your champagne toast for the night?
My champagne toast for the night is don't disappoint us white women. I said what I said.
I'm gonna just mute her. I just mute her because was she
No, I have to say it because that's where the vote is gonna lie tomorrow. Now, outside of me saying my political opinion, I would like to say thank you, Sequez, for giving us the space and the grace to be able to have this conversation today. Thank you to those who joined. I had some family members texting me who joined. Always honored to share the platform with my best friend. But this has been great. And that's my champagne toast.
period. Thank you for Jasmine for us ending positively. I just want to say my champagne toast is just for the education. This was really, I'm gonna be completely transparent. This was really last minute. And I've been to put this together, and I've been hounded by so many different people about bringing this back. So there is a need and a desire for it. So I appreciate you guys for joining and being with us. This is important. Like it just honestly really is important. And where we are as a society is evolving. And it's important that we stay connected. So I ask that my goal is for this to be you become a conscious voter, understanding what you don't know, be aware, have the self-awareness, understand what you don't know, and if you don't know it, it's okay, but learn from it and learn how you can be better. Your local elections are just as important as the general election. It's the same thing, or even more so, more and more important. That's your community, like Brandon was saying, or Jasmine, I don't know which one was talk about. Your trash being picked up, or
Stoplight,
the
potholes,
stoplights, all of that. That's your community. So
and consider running for office.
yeah,
Consider
consider
running for
running for
office.
office. You know what? If I haven't learned anything in corporate America, is that it is full of dumb people. And if a title does not determine your intelligence,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so it is imperative that if you see the need, fill the gap. You got people like Swift. I'm trying to get him to become senator, y'all. Like he could be like my little down to earth senator. I'm like, oh, that's my friend. You know what I mean? And Jasmine, even though she's pessimistic, she's really smart and has a big heart, but very pessimistic. But it's called balance. It's called balance. So again, thank you all so much. This recording will be available. It seems like what I've been seeing when it comes to Champagne Conversations, that people always watch it after the live. So we have high views after, so the replay. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a safe night.
And
Please be safe at the polls.
only Sequez could get me and Brandon to do this the Monday after
homecoming. After they was
only
Sequez.
We literally was sitting at Starbucks in Jackson yesterday. Like, this is only for Sequez.
Yes, because y'all love me. Like,
it's my bedtime, so yeah.
Period. Mine too, because I'm sleepy. But please be safe at the polls. Do your best. Show up the best way that you know how, and we're gonna stay connected. So again, thank you so much.
And also, big love to everybody. We're gonna see what happens.
Big love to everybody except Trump supporters.
Sequez.
And after that, amen. Y'all have a blessed night.
Bye. Are we staying on?